Hi, I'm Jack. This video is for my parents. The first three original content videos on this channel are a partial Sims 4 walkthrough of what the world in my dreams looks like. This one is technically part of that. So, back in 2021, I started having hyper-realistic dreams in a recurring dreamscape, and the first place actually that I saw in this hyper-realistic space was my childhood home. The front yard of my childhood home. And it was in such excruciating detail that it blew my mind. All of the other lots that I have shown in this series are fictional, with elements from real-life places that I had been, but I've also visited my childhood home inside these dreams before. My parents moved nearly a decade ago by now and sold the house, and one time when they visited California, they did a short little drive-by just to check it out, and my mom in particular was pretty sad to see basically that it looks completely different. So I thought that as long as I'm showing off the places that exist in my dream world, I might as well dedicate a full video and try to make this lot as accurate as I possibly can to the way that I remember it when I left that house. If you've seen my other videos, I probably don't need to tell you that build mode is not my strong suit. I'm not great at creating three-dimensional spaces, and I couldn't tell you what 10 feet looks like without needing a measuring tape, so the proportions are going to be off. It would be nice, Mom and Dad, if you would give your feedback on the layout of the lot, and then I could do a follow-up video making the necessary fixes to make it as accurate as we possibly can. Okay, so I put the lot in Newcrest, and here's the thing, I don't have a good idea of scale, so the exact dimensions are not going to be exact. Okay, alright, so I'm going to change it to the afternoon here. So this is the street. I know that this is the street, but actually this is the street. I could rotate the lot. Maybe I'll do that later. But this is our front yard. Obviously everything isn't going to look exactly a one-to-one, but this is as much as I could. Oh, it didn't save. Okay. So this was our front yard. There was a gigantic crack in the middle of the driveway. That was absolutely coming from the root of this redwood tree. It was going the opposite way, that's the thing. That's interesting that it's doing that. Hello? So this crack is supposed to go in the opposite direction. It's supposed to go like that, I think. But either way, it was coming from the root of this redwood tree, this gigantic redwood tree that we had in the front yard. And this is supposed to be my dad's truck, but he had a white truck. The thing to let my parents know, there's no actual cars in The Sims 4. This is a toy car that I scaled up way, way big. So this is as close as we're gonna get to that. But we had this kind of irregular... figured it out. But we had this really irregular front yard, and I can't remember if the fence came out this much. I don't think it did. I think I edited this lot at one point, and then I tried to save and close out, and it just kept loading. And I think one of the things I did here is that I adjusted the front yard. I don't think there was an actual fence here. I think what we had was just a ditch and some trees and rocks. There was the neighbor's persimmon tree, which I thought was ours. And that, there's no persimmon trees in this game. Is there? No. So I think I used this tree for the persimmon tree. It was the neighbor's persimmon tree, but it dropped into our yard. And here's the... We had a black mailbox, I think. There we go. And then we just had these, they're called periwinkles. I don't know what they actually are, but it was a five petal flower that grew in a creeping bush type style, and if you got them around pollination time, you could suck the honey out of them. That looks very similar. Not quite. It wasn't quite this exact flower, but it looked similar to that. I know that there's a better... This one. What is this? Bougainvillea. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna use Bougainvillea in The Sims, whatever that is, but this is basically, we had these bushes here with purple flowers, and there was also a another tree here that was not a persimmon tree, right there. And so, okay, so that's part of our front yard here. It wasn't this lush and green in this spot. We'll do this. It was like a lot of pine needles and stuff. And I can't remember quite what was in this corner here. I mean, I know that my mom had some flowers over here that were narcissus. There's not really... This is going to be the closest that I can get. But she would plant them right here, and I would park my car here, so it was like this was a strip of concrete, and then this was a slant of concrete. And it would take us back to our boat, which was not a steamboat, it was a speedboat. But this is where that would be. And then this is the rest of our front yard here. So there was like this like bush situation here, there was like trees and bushes, and there was this bush that we would put a net of Christmas lights on. And I know it was not squared off, but this is The Sims, so give me a break. And we had this whole front yard of, oh, okay, so that also didn't save. So we had this whole front yard area of ivy, which my dad was allergic to, so he couldn't cut it back because he was allergic to it. It crept all the way along the front of the property. And there used to be a drainage ditch right here, which I can't really put it here without screwing up the entire layout. But there used to be a drainage ditch here, and when I was really, really little and it would rain hard enough, I would just get in the water in the drainage ditch. And my parents hated that. On the other side of the fence, this was our yard, so I decided to include the ditch that existed here, that I believe was formed from the root of this redwood tree. So I believe the root of this redwood tree not only formed this crack, but also formed the ditch that led up to this other fir and or pine tree that I don't think... I think it also was a redwood actually, but it was the biggest tree I'd ever seen. It was about this big in scale. Like, in scale, it was like this big on the property. It was a massive tree. And when I was talking about my hyper-realistic experience, this is the corner of the yard that I saw in my dreams. Except that this fence here, there was a lattice portion in like the top like 6 inches of the fence. It was like this lattice that was embedded into the fence, and there was just this loose rock edge up to the side fence, which clips out of my memory a little bit. So, but here's the front porch, and I decorated it for Halloween because I was prepping for Halloween before this video, but the Toontown video took me longer than I thought it would. I have Patchy the straw man and everything. And we had a bench out in the front porch that looked exactly like this, and I think a glass top table, and a chair that matched this bench, and we had this hose that I was afraid to turn on because the spigot was right here, and black widows often made their home over here because black widows are native to this area. I feel like this porch extended further than it does here, but this is part of where my memory is screwing up the dimensions. In terms of entrances, we have the front door here. This is the guest door. This is the guest entrance, which would bring you into the living room, where we used to have this post right here that like a hand railing, as though we had stairs, but there were no stairs. There was no step up, no step down, nothing like that. But we did have some tile here, and it was the same tile as the kitchen. And our old golden retriever would lie on these tiles because they were so nice and cold. I think these windows were west facing, but this is the initial, room that you would walk into if you're a guest. And I don't remember if it was a mirror here or just a painting or something, but there is this little table here that would be for decoration stuff. And this would be our dining table, and I put a cornucopia up here, as we would do when it was this time of the year. We had one nice big rug right here, but there wasn't a rug with the same dimensions in The Sims, so I just overlapped them. And there was this china cabinet full of stuff that we never touched. And there were, let me put some candles on here. I loved decorating for fall, honestly. I loved decorating for Halloween and just anything from the season. So this is as close as I could get to the wine bar that my parents had. They had these little there was this little half-size tile shelf that went here. So about where this second shelf is right here, that's about where it stopped. And it was a nice little, when I was a kid, it was a nice little bunk for me to hide underneath, but the intention of it originally was to be a wine rack. And I know that there's a wine rack actually in this game, but I know that my parents know exactly what pumpkin this is, because we had one like this, and it jiggled when it was a motion detected one, and it was creepy. It was like Labubu creepy, but cuter. There we go. But this little wine rack area was one of my favorite places to decorate during the holidays, because we had such cute little centerpiece decorations that would go here for Halloween. There was this haunted porcelain shipwreck thing, and so I would arrange the ship and the pirate staring out at the mermaid on the rock and all of that. It was nice. And we didn't have a rotary phone like this, but we did have a landline. And I don't think that there's another type of... Yeah, this is as close as I can get to that, the landline that we had. But there was also this little accent table here, and I can't remember if there was a painting or a mirror here. I think there was a mirror here. I think this is the mirror that I have back here in my apartment. But there were these cabinets. There was a little sink here because it was meant to be a little wine bar, and underneath the phone we kept the phone book. This was basically, this front half of the house was our guest entertaining space, and so we had this place got arranged in different ways all the time. We had these two couches that for a long time, one of these couches was by the window, and then we switched it up because the Christmas tree goes here in the Christmas time, is we would put it right in front of this window here. And I can't remember how many lamps were in this room. I can't remember. I believe there was a mirror here. I can't remember if this mirror was this mirror, or if this mirror was that mirror in the wine bar. But there was a mirror that I have right here. And I just remember this area getting changed up a lot throughout the years. But it would still have the same layout, so it would be the Bible study room over here, and the dining room over here. And it looked exactly like this. I would spend a lot of my time in this front half of the house. And it looked pretty much exactly like this. And then out here, this was a closet. So this was the coat closet, basically. This was all the outdoor clothes, and this is where we kept the board games. and it was a sliding door, so I made it room for the closet, but this is a lot bigger, so this is also where my spatial awareness kind of like goes out the window. But this was right across from the kitchen here. I did my best. We had just one big tall like square dining table right here, and this is where we obviously would have dinner, and the walls were yellow, and there was the chandelier up here. There was another little accent table here. I don't know what's happening with this urn. I don't know if a sim moved in here and died and there's this urn left, so I didn't delete it. I was like, this must be here for some reason. And we had a mirror a lot like this right in this spot where it was like kind of an ornate like shelf mirror. This was the snack and cereal cabinet, and this is as aligned as I could get it on this spot. We had kitchen tile that it was very much this color scheme and size. This is as close as I could get it to what we had. And we just had little bar stools at this little bar here. This actually is where we used to keep the dog food. Remembering that right now in real time. Out here is where we used to keep the refill, but this is where we used to keep the actual dog food. And there was so much more clutter that I had put in here that was so relevant to what we had. There was like this. Yes, we had this little chicken thing that my mom would put the bread rolls in for Thanksgiving dinner. So that should go out right now, because right now is the season between Halloween and Thanksgiving. So this is where the dog food was for Brooke. And then we had a little chicken here, and then there was, pots and pans, the stove, and then this is where we keep paper bags and plastic bags from the grocery store. And there was this tiny little bay window here, and my mom had one of those crystals that scatters rainbows around, and she would hang it right here in this window, and whatever window plants we had would go in this window. And we had a little radio attached to the bottom of the shelf here, and it was a CD player as well as a radio. And this was the medicine cabinet here, fridge obviously. And I remember a great deal of times looking up at this one light. I put two square ones here, but it was one long rectangular one. Looking up there and just seeing all the bugs that had died in there. This is the living room. So when I crashed, I actually had this shelf up here. So this is as close as I could get to the entertainment system, as my parents called it. The Sims doesn't have everything, but I tried to get as close to the TV stand area as I possibly could, because there were display cabinets here, and then there were little shelves exactly like this, but it was all a cohesive piece, and the TV sat in the center of it. And then this is the closest thing that I could get to our fireplace. I don't really remember what was in this corner other than the window here, and I don't think it was this spacious, but I also I'm having difficulty with the space of the house in general. We had this ficus here that was just this fake ficus that was just always here, and this was the piano that I barely played. I say barely, but I did what I wanted to do on this piano. My brother had a supernatural experience one time where he saw somebody sitting at this piano in the middle of the night. And we had these French doors here that my mom would always remind us were French doors. And then this was the playroom for the longest time. So this changed around a lot. And this is the closest layout to what I can remember when I left. So you came in through the French doors, and there were two doors to the backyard. So there was this door here and this door here, and in between this door and the French doors was a cabinet, an open cabinet, and this was where photo albums were and certain toys. And then this couch was a blue and white, not checkerboard, but what is it? When it's crisscross, gingham. A blue and white gingham pattern, very, very simple couch, which I loved so much. I played so much Assassin's Creed on that couch. And then this was my computer area. And this was Mom's computer area / my brother's computer area. but also my sewing area was here. And also, this area used to be over here, but this place changed around a lot, and so it's difficult to kind of like pinpoint. But but we did have the TV right here next to the door, and I feel like it wasn't this wide, but it had to have been because there was this cabinet here, and this is one of those things where it's kind of difficult to parse spatially. But all of this back part was one room at one point, and then when my little sister moved in, there was this family ordeal to divide this back room into also a bedroom for her, and we have this kind of like partial wall up here, so there like we could my brother used to like fling Beanie Babies over and see if my sister could catch them and stuff like that. And I had this area a little bit more decorated before my game crashed, but I was also kind of just going by my gut. So all I really remember is that the bed was up against this window, and she had a bunch of like her cheerleading stuff over here, her like awards and shit, and then she had her Monster High dolls right here. But I didn't really go into my siblings' rooms, really, because I'm like, that's your space. Anyway, that brings us to my brother's bedroom, which, again, I didn't really spend a lot of time in my siblings' space, but my brother and I grew up in this room until the roommate moved out and I moved into her room. But my brother's room was, I think it was blue the whole time. He didn't really change a lot of it, but he had reptiles a lot. So he would have these reptiles and they'd be right by the window here. And he had a walk-in closet as well, very similar to this one over here. Within that closet, inset in the hallway here, was just a little bookshelf, and I got as close in The Sims as I could get, but it was just inset in the wall, just as the height of the shelf, and it was where we kept all of our books, all of our childhood books and stuff, so it was nice. So this is the hallway. Forever there was a picture of my mom and I right at the end here, in like a bunch of feathers, and it was always right here at the end. And then this was my bedroom, which I got after the roommate moved out, and there was an add-on, much like my sister's bedroom, where the playroom that was divided in half. The add-on was for the roommate, so that she could have basically her own suite. So there was a bathroom added, and a gigantic walk-in closet, which I haven't done the details in this closet, but this was essentially the layout. So there was this abrupt corner where the hallway ended, and I had a lot of irregular furniture, so this is as close as I could get to my room. But the bed, the last position that my bed was in was right here against my parents' wall. And I had this exact lamp, but in pink. And then the walls were this color. I picked it out myself. The walls were this color. And these are making up a lot. So in this spot, so I had a corner desk in this spot that matched with so it was a dresser, but in place of like a vanity, it had like bookshelves. And at a certain point, my mom had got me a sewing table, which ended up just taking up space, because I really do, at the end of the day, prefer to cut my fabric on the floor. So I really appreciated where her heart was when she bought me this table, but ultimately I would have preferred just to keep the floor space. And I didn't have this exact chair over here, but I had one of those big round pink ones. And this is where I would put my flags. I had an American flag here at one point, and then I switched it with the Pirates of the Caribbean Jolly Roger. And I had this dresser shelf area for knickknacks and stuff like that. And then, of course, here is the bathroom that haunts my nightmares. Because the thing is about the add-on that my parents told me is that it was not done on the most professional terms. And I don't think the bottom of it was properly sealed to the foundation, or however that works. So basically, the way that I describe it is that spiders thought that my indoors bathroom was outdoors very, very often, and I'm arachnophobic. This was the area in the house, of course, that I lived in, and it was also the area of the house where I ran into the most spiders. And I only wanted it this bright yellow color because my birth mom was like a collector of rubber ducks, and I thought I wanted like a rubber ducky bathroom. But I hate the color yellow, and I've always hated the color yellow. And it's a tiny, 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 tiny bathroom. It took forever to get hot water in there, and it was just so small. And it was always this linoleum floor. I don't think we got my bathroom replaced with tile. And this was my walk-in closet, which would have been amazing if it didn't smell like cat piss all the time. And then over here, on the other side of my bedroom wall, is my parents' bedroom. And it was this beautiful bronze beige color. And I can't remember what sort of ceiling light, but I think it was a chandelier. But this was as close as I can remember their bedroom. And then there was this chair. I can't remember if it was from my mom's family or my dad's family, but it was on my mom's side of the bed. And she also had a bedside table. There was this chair in the corner here, which my parents would hide birthday and Christmas presents behind this chair sometimes. And I would just pretend that I didn't see them. They were wrapped already, but I would just be like, oh, And there was this armoire that instead of their clothes, the TV was in here, so they could open and close it, and the TV would be in here. And I watched many a Saturday morning cartoon. I watched many a Winx Club in their armoire. And this is the part that's kind of confusing me, right? Because this was my parents' closet through which the attic could be accessed. And I know it wasn't this small. And I know that my dad had a roll-top desk here. But I don't think their bedroom was that big, though, because they had a hope chest at the end of the bed. Oh, that also didn't save. They had a hope chest at the end of the bed, but there was not this much space between that hope chest and this wall, I think. So there was at least this much, there was this much space, if not less. However, there was enough space along this wall for my dad to have his roll-top desk, but for them to still be able to get into the closet. And the closet was bigger than this. And it must have come to the fence. But it can't have been that big, so that's where I'm confused. So if my parents could chime in here as to the layout of this, that would help out a lot. But I do remember you would come in and the door would act as a wall for the towels, which were in an inset shelf, just like the bookshelf in the hallway. And then my mom's jewelry was here, but it was on this side of the wall. But in The Sims, it would be awkward if it was there. And my dad's dresser was here, but I can't remember if it was on this side or this side of the door. And this door couldn't have gone that far back because this bathroom was big, but not that big. Anyway, this was the best bathroom in the house, bar none, my parents' bathroom, because there were 2 sinks. And this was the best shower. It wasn't a shower bath, it was just a shower, but there's no gigantic shower in The Sims. There's just standing single showers and then like a bath shower. But it was a shower that was as long and wide as a bath shower. This bathtub was more of a rectangular that came out to here and here. And this is where I used most of my Lush products. I think that there was a painting right here in a gold frame, and I can't remember if there actually was one or if that was something that I daydreamed about when I was having nice, luxurious little baths in there. We're gonna come back down the hallway here. There was another coat closet here, and then here was our guest bath, which I guess I didn't put a light in. I did a lot to this build that didn't get saved. Well, you can't see it all that well, but like this was basically what it was. This was a shower bath, was the guest bath, and this ended up being my brother's bathroom basically, because mine was in my room, my parents was in their room. The countertop from the sink extended over the back, and there was always daddy long legs like right here. It had carpet, I think, for the whole time. That can't be right. That shouldn't be right. No, I think it just had carpet when we had the white carpet. I think once we tiled things, I don't know. But it didn't have linoleum at the start. It had carpet. It had the same white carpet as the rest of the room. But I can't remember. So that's the whole interior of the property. And then out back, so you come back out through the playroom here. And, So you come back out through the playroom here, and this was our backyard. When I was little, this was a wooden deck, and it was raised slightly off the ground because it was a wooden deck. And there was a built-in hot tub inside the wooden deck, and that was like up until I was like 5 or something like that. All I do remember was it being torn up, and then the period of time that it was just raining and there was just this empty area here, and I lost a McDonald's toy here. It was Cynthia from Monsters Incorporated, which was very rare because we rarely went to McDonald's. And I remember losing it in the mud in the rain and being like, I'm never gonna find that again, and I was right. And we ended up, my parents ended up paving over it, which was similar to the color. I think that, I don't know if this is, in The Sims, I don't know if this is the same tile. I don't think it is. It's not. But it was a very similar, like, rustic Tuscan color. And this is, it didn't look like this. It wasn't glass like this. It was square and it was fabric. But it was right here outside of my bedroom window. Right outside of my bedroom window here. We had this, space where I can't remember how many times we rearranged the space. We had this table out here, and we had a bench out here, and we had chairs at a certain point that had this kind of base, and they squeaked back and forth. But I can't remember what when. And I do remember a little flower box either here or both. I don't really remember. And this is the thing, is that my parents spent a lot of time landscaping the back and front yards, and I wasn't really that involved, but I did enjoy it after it was done. My dad's grill was here, and then here we had these trees that my parents planted when my brother and I were really, really little. So I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 trees, but either 2 of them represented my parents or 1 of them represented my parents, and the other 2 represented me and my brother. And I remember that mine was a maple tree because it had the helicopter seats. Between this tree and this tree we had a hammock, which The Sims does not provide for me, but that was going on. So we had the hammock, and we had the potted plants here. And then on this side, so right out this back door that was right between my little sister's room and the rest of the playroom, out this back door we had these pavers that led past these Japanese maple trees. We had 2 Japanese maples, and I think this was the placement of them. And they came out to here to the hot tub. So my parents used to have a built-in and in-ground, I don't think it was in-ground, it was just built into the deck, hot tub over here, that I only remember being 3 years old and being in that area. But eventually, once they rebuilt the backyard, they were able to get a new hot tub to go right here, and there was, oh yeah, okay, so, nope, table area here, girl, I don't know, there was like a chair here, and like a chair here or something. There was a table here, I'll put a table here. I think we had like this lattice, this like metal lattice top table, that sounds about right, but I don't have that in The Sims. So we had this hot tub here, and then this is supposed to be a gardenia bush, because we had a gardenia back here, which if you don't know what a gardenia is, it smells a lot like jasmine. And then back in the day, this used to be a chicken coop. So back in the day, we used to have a chicken coop back here, but we got rid of it while I was still a child, and this became just a really patchy backyard grass area for the dog to go. And then there was a couple of shrubberies in this area, and this was still that fence that had the lattice at the top. And then this tree right here, so there was this like uneven strip of concrete that went around the back and side of the house like this. Like, it looked like this. Like, this was not me ad-libbing. And you would pass my little sister's window, and then the small 2 windows from the living room, and then the bay window from the kitchen, and then make it to where the boat was. And there was also trees over here, but I didn't place them yet. But there was this big old tree. When I was a little tiny baby, Winnie the Pooh was like my favorite cartoon of all time. And Pooh Bear, in the videos that I was used to watching, he would go out to his thinking tree and he would sit down and he would go, think, think, think. And I would do that apparently, allegedly, when I was a little baby child, according to my mama. And I would do that right outside here. I guess this was an oak tree, but it had tree stars. So I never actually had the personal first-hand memory of acting like Pooh Bear underneath this tree. That was way, way early in my childhood, but by the time I remember this tree, I remember referring to it as the tree star tree, because it had these big, like 5-pointed leaves. And I would call it the Tree Stars tree because I loved The Land Before Time. So the rest of this part of the backyard, I'm so sorry to my parents, but I don't remember the full layout. I do know that there was a lot going on here, so it was like, there was a little bit of a slope up on the landscape here, I think. And there was like different types of plants in this area, like grasses, bushes. And I think there was a couple of like gigantic like pottery here with other plants in them. And then on this wall that shared my bedroom wall was morning glories. So this is morning glories. And then over here along the fence, which was along the fence of a property next to us that was abandoned for a long time and squatted in for a while. But along this fence, there was, I think my parents put full lattice onto this part of the fence. But we did have roses, and I think that these rose bushes were here when my parents bought the property, but I can't remember. But I do remember my parents planting these pine trees back here that I think were redwood trees, and there was a fire pit here that was like a stone fire pit. And this bench, we had a stone bench here, but it was like curved. It was very nice and chic. That's all that I could really remember. There was this side yard area that everybody avoided because it was like Black Widow Central, but this was also where like the electrical panel was for the house. There was not this much space, I don't think, between the fence and the side of the house, but I can't make my room any bigger than this. I can't make my parents' room any bigger than this. And as far as the layout goes, let me go ahead and do a top view here. This was as good as I could make it from my direct memory. I could concede that the porch goes out a little bit longer. However, I don't think the living room was that long. So, I would love a little bit of feedback, and I would love to do a second video. So, you know, this is as close as I could get given my memory. I know we didn't have a palm tree here, but I was just trying to go with a tree that had this pothos growing up it, because we had a lot of that. There was a lot of greenery in this front corner of the yard here. And, I know that we had, like, a little trench with some plants here as well. But, yeah, this is as close as I could... Oh, yeah, I forgot. So, this was the... just last little thing here. This was the garage. And it was a 2-car garage. But once my dad started getting the truck, he would park it out here. So, I don't remember what car was here when my dad had the truck. But I would almost infallibly park here. I didn't want to wake everybody up by opening the garage door after I was getting home at like 2 and 3 in the morning. So, but this was our garage, and this was like the one place in the house that there was like storage we didn't look at, other than like the attic in my parents' room. But this was the one place in the house where there was storage we didn't look at. There was this workbench over here that was literally just for storing WD-40 and a rusty old toolbox. And there was like brooms and rakes in this corner here. And then my mom's car was always here. So eventually it was the red Acura, and that is the most recent car that I can think of in that space. And then this was the laundry room, and one of the reasons why I didn't cover this one is because I don't have any furniture in here, because I refuse to spend money on an entire pack just to put laundry machines in a game where I'm not going to play with laundry. But we did have a outdoor fridge out here, so we had the outdoor fridge and we had some pantry stuff, and then we had the indoor fridge. So that's I believe the end of the walkthrough here. I tried to get as accurate as I could. To my parents, I hope that this was better than driving past the property and seeing it with your own two eyes. And let me know about the layout. I really tried. I feel like it was a yellow house with a brown roof. I feel like it was a yellow house with a brown roof, but obviously I didn't change the roof color. And this doesn't look yellow, but I think that's just the lighting. Yeah. I remember it was half brick down at this part, and I think the rest of the house wasn't like that, but I can't really remember. I can't have everything exactly as accurate as it could be to the house. You know, I can only position windows at certain points. I can only make objects so big or so small. I can't remember. I don't think it was us that had this row of cypress trees, but I also can't really remember like what was in this area here. Yeah, I look forward to hearing your take. There is something that I need to address in this video because it's going to affect my ability to continue the series. The Sims community is already well aware of everything going on, so the following explanation is mainly for my parents for the context. Electronic Arts, the parent company of The Sims, was sold to a group of investors. The most notable investor and the largest equity owner is Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund on behalf of the Saudi Arabian government. I won't get into all of the details, but if you'd like to learn more, I will link videos in the description by creators that I think covered this issue the most concisely. In brief, this acquisition could mean the end of The Sims 4 in more ways than one. Firstly, game abandonment. Electronic Arts are also the parent company of all of the sports video games, so like FIFA World Cup and all of that nonsense, which were the main appeal of this acquisition by Saudi Arabia. These investors don't care about The Sims, and one main concern is that it will literally cease to become playable because of this apathy that the new investors have toward The Sims in particular, compared to the other EA titles. In addition to that, the Sims team have already announced that they have been using AI to cut costs, which is obviously going to affect the quality of the expansion packs being produced, the quality of the bugs being patched, and that's already abysmal. As it is, the bugs and patches in this game are already abysmal, and AI is simply going to erode the game much more quickly. Another important concern is that in order for these investors to make their money back, the game will most likely become increasingly more expensive in addition to the lowered quality. Particularly, people have raised concerns about microtransactions. And then, of course, there's the acknowledgement that the Saudi Arabian government is fatally anti-LGBT. And I do mean fatally. They are known for executing people that speak out against their human rights abuses. And I didn't know until all of this was being covered, but apparently The Sims is one of the most LGBT-friendly games on the market. And even that was a mistake that slipped through the cracks. So there are concerns that all of the new Pride objects in build mode and create a Sims will be done away with, as well as the ability to create custom pronouns, and of course for same-sex Sims to marry in-game. The Sims community at large have been calling for big-name Sims YouTubers to leave the EA Creator Network and to stop taking sponsorships from EA directly, as well as to stop promoting the upcoming DLC. Obviously, there has been a lot of drama surrounding that. Obviously, I have no influence. I'm not sponsored by EA. I have less than 100 wonderful subscribers, but not nearly enough to for my opinion to be swaying swaths of people. And other than that, I'm pretty sure I got everything that was worth buying, and I got it all half off. I'm not a sucker. I will not pay full price when EA. So if I make more Sims 4 videos, it will only be to finish up the series. Then all that's left to do is wait and see. The thing is, I've never called myself a simmer, and I still wouldn't consider myself a simmer. I never played any of the first 3 games, and I do probably spend more time in creative Sims than I do in actual gameplay, because the gameplay is so bugged. So it'll be easier for me than other people to move on to a different game. I've considered doing playthroughs of the first 3 Sims games after either borrowing or getting them secondhand. For sure, I'll be making more Toontown videos, whether or not people ask for them, and maybe at some point Subnautica. But I can't guarantee a schedule at this time, as this is not my job. I'm going to be prioritizing one of my more ambitious, longer form videos, because it would be cool to get that out yesterday, but there's still a long way to go. Mom, Dad, I hope seeing our old house again helped to replace your more recent memories of it, and to everybody else who tuned in, thanks for watching if you did.